to the Rehab My Soul podcast. I am your host, Lamiski Love. I have a special guest here from Melbourne, Australia. Her name is Nira, and she is responsible for helping women over 42 reclaim their vitality by biohacking. Oh, can't wait to talk about it. Nice to meet you, Nira. Nice to have you on. How are you?
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Lamiski, and I'm feeling great. Thank you. I've just been to my personal training, and that was so I'm all fired up.
All fired up, got that energy flowing in the body. Let's
Yeah,
go. Let's go.
yeah, exactly.
So tell me, how did you tell me like why biohacking? What is biohacking?
Probably the best way to say it is to try and get us back to how we used to be, how we were maybe, let's say, 100 years ago. That's probably what biohacking is. It's probably not so much going back to primal living primally, but going back to maybe 100 years ago. Um, so it's making small tweaks in our day that can make a significant difference to how our energy levels, our vitality, how our body regenerates itself. And, you know, our bodies can, I believe our bodies can regenerate and heal. And I really believe um, that we know this innately. We all know this innately. I'm just there to remind people and to show them little tweaks to on how they can get more vitality, have more energy, and not have to live with that brain fog or that niggly pain or very, very chronic pain, and really be vital.
Mm. So accessing more of the energy we have at our disposal basically, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds good.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was just about to ask you, like, what are some signs that we could use some biohacking, but you added in the brain fog. And what are some other ones?
Just about every symptom that our listeners have. It could be it could be difficulty getting out of bed in the morning or even waking up in the morning. It could be that slump that you get after you eat. It could be just not firing like you were when you were younger.
Mm,
That's what I'm talking about. If you remember how you were when you were a child and you're not firing like you were now, then there is a process going on in your body that is doesn't need to be there. So it can be anything.
okay. So tell me your story. How did you get into this and why is it so important to you at this part of your life? And how long have you been doing this work?
Well, when I was 12 years of age, I started to get a sore joint, and then it just spread throughout my body. And so I've had this chronic condition where the joints are deteriorating. And but more than the deterioration of the joints, it was the exhaustion that went with it. If I could have at least even had energy to read or stay up and watch something or anything that I could have done that didn't require me to use my joints too much, even that would have been good. But sometimes all I could manage was getting in the shower, having a shower and going back to bed and basically sleeping for the rest of the day.
Mm,
And I'd get I'd eat my meals in bed. And that was periods of time when I was really flared up. And then I'd have other periods that were a little, not as bad, but I'm talking about years. I'm not talking about weeks or anything. This could go on for years. And by the age of, uh, well, when I was 57, I was basically being needed to be turned by my partner, and it looked like he was going to have to turned in bed. I'm talking about wheelchair bound, turned in bed, and so it was pretty serious at that point when I was 57. Um, Probably just an inch away from being in a nursing home, but but throughout my life, I was from the maybe I started getting interested in alternatives probably by the age of 20, I'd say. And I was starting to look at ways that I could access more energy to be able to help myself. And so it's been a long, long process of finding things that work, letting go of the thing, keeping it. It just becomes part of my day, and and um, discarding those things that just didn't move the needle at all. And I've been doing this now. I've been actually being a biohacker has only been like getting out there on Facebook and social media. It's been fairly recent, but I have been doing what I've been doing for a very long time.
Wow, that's awesome. So, biohacking is a part of, like we said earlier, accessing the most energy that we can access in that moment, right? To be able to shift something or change something biologically that helps us be more alert or just be more available in that present moment. Um, what would you suggest someone do if they're feeling very stuck energetically in life? What are some things that you would suggest to get someone moving?
Let me go back a little bit, Miski, because I've made it seem as though it's just for energy. It's actually to reduce your aging. It can literally, it's to drop the rate that you're aging at. Now, when I said to you that my husband was rolling me in bed, wheelchair bound, at that point in time, I was not looking like I am now. My friend would, well, a friend of mine that actually had the courage to say it, said, "You look like an 80-year-old." My skin had totally wrinkled up. My hair was going grey. My eyebrows were going grey. I was losing memory. I was aging. I had aged very, very fast in a very short period of time. Within 9 months that happened, that whole episode, that I aged very, very fast. So we can accelerate our aging by what we're doing. And what I've done there, the change that I had made then was to go onto a high fat diet and cut out sugar. So keto, substituting fat for fuel rather than sugar. Now, I just made a huge mistake and ate excessive amount of fat. What I should have done was have a small amount of fat in my meals and had lots and lots of vegetables and greens and a little bit of protein, meat. But we just went overboard with the fat. And what happened was that my whole gut bacteria was taken over by fat eating bacteria, and they were putting poisons into my body, endotoxins. Now, that took a lot of money and a lot of investigating to find that out, that's what was the cause of it. But at the same process, I was in, so it's been, I'm now 62, so it's been in 5 years or less. It was, I mean, I've been looking like this for probably the last year. So maybe within 4 years, I've been able to reverse back my aging, my cellular age. So maybe at that time I might, on a cellular level, I was 80. And by, really just tweaking, not major changes, just tweaks, I've been able to get back to looking more my age. So what was the question? I've forgotten.
So my question was from the angle of energy, but you were correcting me in saying that biohacking isn't just for energy; it is for reversing or slowing aging. And so the question was, what recommendations would you have for someone who is? So I'll change the question now a little bit since we added the aging
Yeah,
aspect of it. But I was going
yeah.
to ask, so what recommendations, like what are some things that people can do that are free to just see, like, what is this biohacking thing and how can it affect me? How can it benefit me? What are some of the first steps you would take for someone that maybe feels like their skin is looking a little bit older than they want to look, or their body feels a little bit older than they want to feel?
Probably one of the first things I would suggest would be to make sure that you are not consuming any other oil than olive oil. Olive oil, especially for menopausal women, it's got a substance in it that as our estrogen levels drops, or perimenopausal, postmenopausal, and it's got a substance in there that helps with our joints and our skin. It's an olive oil is got so many nutrients in there that help support us. The the other oils that we're consuming, vegetable oils, anything else, just about, is pro-inflammatory. It's chronic low-grade inflammation that's happening. And that chronic low-grade inflammation is going to age us. It's in everywhere. It's everywhere, vegetable oils. I'll share a story with you that I was doing really well. This is before 57. I was doing really well. And suddenly I started to develop pain in my feet. And I hadn't had that kind of pain in my feet. And this went on for months and months. And in the end, when we started traveling, it disappeared just about overnight. And at that point, I had to really think, well, what are we doing differently here? Apart from traveling, usually I would expect that I'm sitting in the car for a long time. My feet, when I get out, are going to be more painful, but that wasn't the case. So I thought about it, and we were having feta cheese 2 or 3 times in an olive oil blend. And I rang the company to find out how much olive oil was in there. There was very little olive oil, but even if there wasn't a lot of olive oil with that other olive oil blend, whatever it was inflammatory. Now, I didn't realize how, because it was only my feet that were aching, but I'm sure that within my cells were being really stressed and were probably aging faster because of that blend that was in there. And it was it was astonishing how quickly that pain in my feet disappeared just by changing one thing in my life. And that would be my very, very first recommendation. My second recommendation would probably be to drink lots of water. And we've all heard this, but if you want to look better, add a pinch of Himalayan salt. Now, Himalayan salt's got lots of minerals in it, and I'm talking about a very small pinch. It hydrates. It's like a mineral supplement. That's how I see it, a multi-mineral supplement. And it helps the water to get into the cells easy. We absorb the water and we retain it, so we're not running off to the toilet all the time. Because if we're just drinking water, it's just going straight through us. And for those women that are finding that their skin's dehydrated. Now, my son in law came home one day and said, "Wow, what are you doing? Your skin's looking so much better." Now, for my son in law to recognize that is, it's like, and I said to him, "It must be my latest tweak. I'm, I'm adding a pinch of salt to my water." And air hostesses and people that are working in air conditioning, they really, really appreciate that because they can see the difference in how they're looking and the vitality that's that there is. So, you know, it's a small tweak that the audience, listeners can say, "Wow, okay, that's easy. I can do that."
Yeah, for sure. Olive oil and water, just not together though, right?
No, no,
Oh
probably
goodness.
not.
Oh no. Do you ever use
Mind
olive
you,
oil? Go ahead.
I do, mind you, I do use olive oil in my juices. Like if I go and get a juice, I will add olive oil to that because it absorbs it. There's nutrients in there that are fat soluble, so the body can take it up better. So I'm just getting more out of my juice. My cells are getting more out of my juice.
For sure.
And amazingly, it tastes beautiful. If you've got a good quality olive oil, it tastes beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. So such small tweaks can make a difference. So when you talk about the low grade inflammation and the high fat diet, so you mentioned that the high fat diet contributes to rapid aging.
It really depends on your uh, gut condition. At that, I had I had a gut bacteria that was I was feeding it, and I would probably I couldn't answer that uh, for everybody that may be true,
Okay.
but I suspect that is what's happening. That when we're having a high fat diet, that I mean, I still haven't given up. What the specialist recommendation was to give up total fat and just to use olive oil. And but I couldn't do that because I don't eat that much sugar. I don't have that much carbohydrates or things that convert into sugar. So my body needs some kind of fuel. So I cut down my fats right down low and I increased my carbohydrates and forms of energy, slow burning, so complex carbohydrates, foods that stay in your system for a long time and burn slowly, and that's made a huge difference. But yeah, I would suspect that having high fat without um, possibly would be contributing to people's aging.
Okay, good to know. I think about how can I slow down aging at this point, but I know that I'm not in the higher age range, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's something that I don't want to wait until the last moment to think about, you know? So I'm constantly doing little things. I think her name is, I can't remember her name, but I read her book on living a long, healthy life, and she talks about rinsing and disinfecting your food a certain way and full spectrum water. Do you ever dabble in full spectrum water?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I mean, I love water, but I haven't heard of full spectrum water.
Okay. I've been trying it for like the last, I'd probably say 6 months, maybe around 6 months. And it's enjoyable. I'm a water snob, so water is something that I'm very picky about. I
Me too.
very rarely will you catch me drinking this, but I
Well,
have some extra water
yeah.
around here now, so sometimes I do. and the convenience of having a little bottle. But the full spectrum water is actually something that I've been doing where I take, instead of bottled water, I take tap water because my local tap water is fairly healthy. And then I bought this full spectrum light bulb where
Mm.
I actually place the water in a clear gallon jug, a glass jug, and I allow the full spectrum light to shine on it. And what it does, what it's said to do, is to remove all of the impurities because it is still tap water, you know? um Removes the following, the not the following but the remaining impurities, and contributes to better hydration and all that stuff. Before that, I was on Kangen and ionized water. So water is very important to me, but I've gone through some changes where I live and I'm not able to use my ionizer. But I believe your source of water could just rapidly, drastically change your overall health and appearance for hydration specifically. So I agree. And I understand absolutely the benefits of olive oil. I have a really, what do they call it? Cold pressed or just pressed olive oil. It's very robust and got all that flavor and all that stuff. So I am on board with that stuff. So as you work with women that are over 42 who are in the what is it, perimenopause and menopausal phases of life, what are their biggest concerns, and like what are they coming to you for?
Let me just go back to the water.
Okay.
If you don't have a that full spectrum light that you've got, what we do is we just put a clear bottle of water out in the sun,
Mhm.
and we leave the lid open so that all the the chlorine can be gassed off, and that's, I don't know, just we've been doing that for a long time because we're also water snobs, and we've also done the alkalizing water, and I'm not convinced about the alkalizing water. I'm still looking at the research, still, uh, only because of the long term effects. I'm not totally convinced. I'm still investigating that. but but what's it for me? I don't really focus on the symptoms that menopausal women have, because there are so many. For our menopausal women, they'll be the first person to tell you what they've got. You know about the hot flushes, but there's changes in our heart. The things that concern me are more the things that are more silent.
Mm.
And so our whole vascular system changes. And the interesting thing about it is, Lemiski, is that all women are headed that way. So no matter how young you are, what they've found is that the women that have made changes earlier, it impacts how they will transition into perimenopause and menopause, because you can go through perimenopause and menopause easily. You don't have to have all these symptoms. And even if you've got all those symptoms, you can dial down on it. But what you're doing before that makes a huge impact on how. That's why I'm say that I help women over 42. If I said much earlier, probably it's most women aren't really thinking about menopause at that time. The
Right.
35-year-olds aren't thinking about it. But at about 42, they're starting to think about, oh, gee, I wonder how it's going to be for me. And at about 45 is the age. I mean, I know a girl at 32 years of age, and she's already into full-blown perimenopause. I probably started it before the age of 30. So it really fluctuates depending on our health. And how well we take care of it is going to depend how we traverse through menopause. So that vascular health, it affects your heart, it affects so many things. And it's a simple tweak. There's a simple tweak. It's beetroot juice. Beetroot juice really helps with that vascular stiffness. And uh, there's a wonderful lady that's local to us who started up a company called Pink Muesli, and her blood pressure was so high, and her mum died of blood pressure when she was 58, high blood pressure, and Marita's blood pressure was going the same way. And her son went and did the research. He went and had a look at what her mum could do because she was on really high blood pressure medication. And he said, start on beetroot juice. And so she did that, and she went back to a checkup, and the doctor dropped her medication by half. And I met her at the market last week, and I asked her, "Oh, so is it only are you still taking half the medication?" And she said, "No." She said, "That's that. I'm not on any medication anymore." And I said, "Oh yeah." So she incorporates beetroot, not just, you don't have to juice it, just incorporate beetroot if you're having issues, if you're finding that your ankles are getting a bit swollen, and just there's little tweaks, there's so many small things that we can do to really help us, because food, and that's the miraculous thing, is that food actually talk to our cells. They literally talk to our cells. And I mean, and the other thing that women don't realize, or most people don't realize, is what we put on our skin eats what we put on it. Literally, it goes into our system. And so, what we put on our skin, you really need to look closely at. There's a fantastic app called Think Dirty, and Think Dirty app will tell you what it rates. And the shocking part is some about it rates for skincare and hair care and things like that. And the shocking part for me was looking at the ratings, and some of the ratings for the natural, the ones that sound really natural, like spring, whatever, so, and were 8, 9, which is carcinogenic levels.
Wow.
They're cancer levels. And so it's well worthwhile getting informed, or just checking it up. It's a free app. It's just, there's so much information out there nowadays that is, it's well worthwhile before you go into menopause to start thinking about how to get more vitality and age slower, so that you're looking terrific by the time you hit menopause.
For sure. Yeah. I know that I'm probably not like other people in that I worry about everything. So I have already started looking into those things and wondering how I can keep my youth and my skin texture and my skin thickness, and of course the very inside, the vascular system, how can I age correctly? And as a black woman, I am faced with so many chronic illnesses that are easily attainable to, to my body type. And that has been a driver as well of trying to figure out, like, how do I figure out this high blood pressure thing where all of my other markers are okay, but I have that vascular stiffness, or I need to make a change, or I have that low grade inflammation. Uh-oh, we lost her.
I am so sorry, Lemiski,
It's okay.
that I put this on silent so that people, I can't be disturbed, do not disturb. I don't know why it's still, I think that must just cut out the phone and not things that are coming through the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
So, so maybe we could start with back with how you were saying. Are you okay with that? Starting,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
yeah, starting
Uh,
back with,
yeah, for sure. So all I was saying was, um, I may be different than other people in that I worry about everything. So I've already started. I'm in my mid to late 30s. I don't know what to say anymore, but I um I have started trying to figure out, and the most interesting thing that I find on my quest of wanting to retain my youth and make sure my skin texture is the same and sagginess and pores and blah 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 and overall health and being baby ready when it's time to have kids and all these things. And what I find is some of the most simple biohacks are very simple. They're very simple, where it could be changing the temperature of the water, changing your oil that you use, like you said, just drinking more water. It's so interesting that we go full circle and call biohacking the things that we kind of already should be doing, right?
yeah, that's right. And is I mean, it can be very simple. That's the thing. It can be simple and it's layered. I mean, there's so many biohacks and there's layers, and each little tweak is, you find that you will have greater vitality, greater energy, you're aging less, your eyes are brighter, your hair is more lustrous. It's all those layer and layer upon tweaks. And if the listeners are interested, they can follow me on Recovering Leopard. That's my Facebook site, or Instagram, where they can, where I will be on a regular basis be posting the tweaks that they can follow, and reminders, encouragements, because we all need it. We forget, you know, oh gee, I've forgotten about that one. So little reminders that they can follow. But you were saying something about being Black, that you're prone to more. I don't know if you said that before we hopped on
Well,
or not.
yeah, I was just saying that as a black woman, I have chronic diseases that can crop up very quickly. And I don't know if it's more quickly than another demographic or not. I'm just talking about my experience. But those things are on my radar already because, life for me isn't life the way my parents had it. My parents, they walked everywhere until high school age, so life is just very different. And so I always think about how even their gut biome is different because they started off eating from the earth for so long, as compared to myself. When I was in middle school, we were eating frozen hot pockets or something, for lunch during the summertime. So I think about, on a even a gut biome level, that my foundation is so much different than my parents. And then in the future, my child's gut biome is going to be very different because of the foods or the lack of things that we have access to. So yeah, I was just saying that as a black woman, there are health concerns that we have to be on top of, for sure. And so that came up because of the beetroot suggestion, because I know high blood pressure really is runs rampant in my community. So
Right. Now, that's really interesting, because all that, what you said, it is, that change in food, that we have so many assaults, I call it, that we are experiencing now that our forefathers didn't. And biohacking, our family history doesn't have to be our destiny. And that is what biohacking is all about. It's about, let's not make our family history into our destiny.
Mm.
We can, and the body is just such an amazing miracle. It's and there is so much more than just the physical that supports us. And it's removing those layers that are are, um, are shielding us, or are cocooning us away from that. That which is holding us in our hardest moments. That's which is holding us in our most crippling times. That love, that whatever you like to call it, that energy that's there, that holds us. It's removing layers between us and that, so that we can connect to that source that is will as heals us as well. So that there's basically, we're increasing that connection. And we can do that through slowing down and allowing us to feel those things that are stopping us. And so biohacking can be listening more to our bodies, just really just listening, because our bodies are especially if a person is following a spiritual path, or they're more sensitive. We're not all the same. And some of us are much, much more sensitive. So we're like the canary in the coal mine. We feel things a lot quicker. We suffer from things a lot quicker than someone else might. And it's not because we're broken, it's because we're more finely tuned. And for us to, and Leminski, that's probably why you're finding that those sort of things creep up, because you are, you are much more sensitive to your canary in the coal mine. Your instrument is much more finely tuned, and your instrument's your body. And literally, when the body is in tune, and we even use it, you will see the cells, the DNA, how they organize themselves. The DNA looks like the scales on a piano. They literally are in tune. And it's that flow that we want to get into. And when the body is, and everybody's body, I mean, I'm still very much requiring care. I'm still very much recovering, which is why I call myself recovering leopard. My joints are still very restricted, and I require care for most of my self-care. And yet, when my body's in tune, when I'm doing those things that are, and I've been like an 80-year-old, as I said before, I'm sure there's some beautiful 80-year-olds there, but I was a sick 80-year-old. When I am in tune, I know it because my body feels juicy. It feels delicious. There's just this lightness about it, even though my joints cannot have the range of movement. So you don't have to be looking like the best version of yourself, like you might have done at a much younger age or whatever. No matter how broken you may appear on the outside, because the body is still healing and repairing itself. And it can take time, depending on how long you've left it, that you can still feel it when your body is in tune. And it's just those simple tweaks. There's simple tweaks, layer upon layer of simple tweaks. And now there are biohacking companies the biotech companies are really just absolutely focused on finding things that can help with our aging and can tune up those genetic DNAs. And and it's and there are products out there, and I've actually partnered with a company that does just that, a biohacking company. So if any of the listeners at any point is interested in that, just jump on Facebook or Instagram and send me a message, and I'll be happy to share some information. But yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful process. It can be fun and enjoyable, and it's almost like you are unveiling yourself. You are removing layers upon layers of that which is stopping you from being as you were intended, as you were designed to be.
Mm, yeah. Wow. Layer upon layer. Absolutely. That's awesome. So we can find you, like you said, on Recovering Leopard on Facebook. And where else are you online?
Instagram
And Instagram. So we'll make sure to
and
have that in the
TikTok.
show notes. Oh, you're
Yeah,
on
and
TikTok.
TikTok.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I haven't been very, I haven't been uh, present in there, but I'm going to start posting in there as well.
For sure. Awesome. So, any final words that you'd like to leave us with, Nira? I really enjoyed our sharing here.
I don't think so. I just would love everyone to know that our bodies are absolute miracles, and that it can reach a potential that is you probably couldn't even imagine if you're allowed it.
Absolutely. We are walking miracles. Yes, we are. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode, Nira. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for all your words of wisdom and for dropping that little factoid about beetroot juice. I'm definitely going to implement that one.
Oh,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate having you on today.
it's been lovely. Thank you, Lemis.
Absolutely.